soon. Edit away. Let's let's get back there. So I'm running a kind of simulated GM prep thing, and I sent some friends questions to give me stuff. Sahil's the only one who got back. Sahil gave me these undecideds I added. And then these are based on like thought processes from older, from I have run tabletop RPGs for 30 years. So I've done these before. So to run through again the characters that had previously been brought up. The two developed characters that we have someone wants to play a rich girl who in a supernatural way hurts the people who touch them. These would have come from like pre-session 0 conversations, just like, oh, we want to run a game, what do we want to do? So there's no real thought process here. Of note, in me, I'm thinking, this is a power, this is a drawback, and complication. And I like it when players bring me both. This is nothing, really. Angry Teen, it's nice for them to have, but it's not really relevant for me in pre-session 0 stuff. This is a drawback complication. Shion and Rinwell, with Tales of Arise, she was like, would it be too silly if I did Tales of Arise? I'm getting messaged. I don't want to open Discord on stream because I'm capturing everything. So I have to open it on my phone. How irritating. Who's adding me? Oh god, weaponize your whimsy. Archfey Warlock. So yeah. I got your message there. I am going to... don't look. There we are. I'm going to bring that up. Look at that. Vummer just sent me this as the Warlock. Vummer, you are now officially the person who sent me the Warlock because you sent me that, so... I'm going to change that D&D thing from L to V. The theoretical A person, which, I want to be clear, Vummer did not send this response. I was pulling these from my experiences beforehand. Like, people will tell me when I'm like, hey, so what are you thinking? They'll be like, I don't know, I want to be a badass soldier. This doesn't tell me much, so I'm not going to worry too much about it, because a badass soldier is in any system. It'll come into more form in Session 0. And then V, being D&D brained, gave me Warlock. I wrote down here, these are the things that could be meant for Warlock in a D&D sense. They're charming characters, they use magic, they combine magic with swordcraft, they have the Eldritch Blast thing, and they could also just mean this, which is this is a complication. These here are all powers. So what I have then, as I'm thinking through what system I want to do, what setting, what hook, so I can bring this to my players in our Session 0, I'm thinking I need to make sure that I'm enabling these powers and preparing myself to be able to take advantage of these drawbacks. Which means I need a system that works well with supernatural powers. I need a system where money matters. I need a system with extra dimensionality. And then this one's not really going to motivate things much, but I may motivate my hook. Can I tie that parent's death into things? And I don't think I would bring that to the players up front, but enabling myself in the hook to later say, this is a reason why R's parents were murdered, is a situation. So, before we identified the music drowning everyone out, I had listed some systems that kind of make sense in this. We have, and it was centered on kind of the supernatural and the extra-dimensional. Mage the Ascension / Mage the Awakening, system I have ready access to, that I have a lot of experience in. It has your powers, it has your extra-dimensional sources, it has wealth as a money thing, but wealth isn't quite as powerful as I'd like. But it is in here. Exalted has all of this and more. D&D is your default. I said it before when I was drowned out. I'll say it again. I don't like D&D because it can do anything, but it doesn't do anything well. Like, if I know what I want to do, there's basically always something better than D&D. Contrast that with one that's not on this list right now, Traveler. Traveler is a game that is I very often lean to as a default because it can do just about anything well, as long as we want to do low power and we don't have magic. If our magic can be reduced to psychic powers, Traveler is great. What Traveler doesn't do well, extra-dimensional stuff isn't really baked in. It's a science fiction setting, in theory, so you can make it work, but it doesn't do magic well. Its supernatural stuff is only psionics, so I didn't list it. Call of Cthulhu. You have your credit score options for your rich girl. You have magic systems. You have extra-dimensional enslavement. You can build something like this. And then Rifts, which is a kitchen sink setting. It's a big mess. I wouldn't think about running things in Rifts unless I had a layout of what people want that tell us Rifts. Little spoiler alerts. After I came up with these two concepts and while I was booting things up, I realized this is kind of a combination that I think Rifts enables well. So I'm leaning towards Rifts, and I just want to run through my thought process here. So, as I said, I have other options besides D&D on this list, so I will remove D&D. If I'm running D&D, it's because D&D, and I include Pathfinder in there. In practice, if I run something D&D-esque, I'm running Pathfinder. But if I'm doing that, then it means I don't have anything else that's going to let me do what I'm wanting to do in the time I have allotted. So I come back to these. What are the vibes of these systems? Mage is about the corrupting influence of power. Exalted is about that same sort of thing turned up to 1,000,000. Call of Cthulhu is a horror sort of themed thing about the futility of human action. And Rifts is, hey, we're cool adventurers, let's go. When I think about these, two of the players didn't really give me a power set. One of the power sets is implied, and one of them is very, I feel awesome. So I feel like that eliminates Call of Cthulhu and Mage from consideration because it doesn't seem like my players want to do something in that sort of horror space. And Mage and Call of Cthulhu are really horror adventure type games. Pulp horror would be a good way to do it. Like, you've got the monster, you can shoot the monster, but the monster's still there, and you will eventually run out of bullets. And there's the promise of the next monster around the way. So I come back to these. And because I have someone D&D brained, I'm leaning away from Exalted. In my experience, it's tough to introduce someone D&D brained to Exalted in particular, because Exalted's power systems can get a little abstract. It might just be the nature of the groups that I've played Exalted with. But that's that. So, rifts. And as I mentioned, I like bringing up rifts when I get a certain variety. Okay, R here hasn't given me a power set. Rifts gives me a lot of variable options, including not really having one. We have an angry teen. Rifts gives us option of the city rat. The city rat isn't going to have fancy military hardware. The city rat isn't going to have fancy magic. The city rat could very literally just be a pissed off teenager with a stolen gun off on a quest to avenge her parents, and bringing all these way more powerful people with her. Badass soldier, there's lots of badass soldier options, ranging from man of war to former coalition officer. And I'm just thinking core book here right now. Mostly because that's the only PDF I really have access to. And then rich girl, yeah, this one's maybe a little bit weaker because there's not really good options to have initial wealth. But we can also fudge that a bit. And Rifts is a setting where a lot of your power comes from your equipment. So if you have a character with a lot of credits, or a lot of access to credits, then that can give us access to things that may be situationally useful. Possibly even providing higher quality power armor for our soldier. Or, you know, if our angry teenager knows how to ride a motorcycle, well, the rich girl can get the angry teenager a shielded, combat-ready motorcycle, and suddenly our angry teenager went from being motivating dead weight to a power source. And the rich girl can do the same for herself. So I'm leaning Rifts. And I'm going to present that as my default option to my players. And then as a backup, in case they aren't on board with that, because rifts can be big, rifts can be scary, rifts can be messy, I will have a backup option. Be like, okay, if you don't want to do that, how about? And I think for a backup option, I don't have this, I'm not going to bring this here, I don't have access to this book immediately, but I do have access to it. I'd say Urban Shadows, I think, gives us a good option, other option. That's a Powered by the Apocalypse game. I'm pretty sure it gives us, like, everyone, it's sort of Powered by the Apocalypse version of World of Darkness. So we have the potential for the rich girl. She would very quickly become a vampire in this setting, I think. This may not be exactly what she's thinking of at that point, but I think if the player's wanting this sort of those who get too close to me get harmed, the promise of wealth and parasitism that a vampire character gives would probably be appealing. Got the werewolf option here. I'm pretty sure there's like infernally bound, devil-possessed people in that system that could probably appease our warlock player. Well, maybe not. Because again, here's the thing that Vummer sent me. I have an image for your warlock. Weaponize your whimsy. So maybe not, but it's also Fae. Rifts also has Fae. I don't have access to that book right now, so I'm not going to go that direction. But in England, I'm pretty sure, there's Fae RCCs, and like the warlock player presenting this sort of Fae-blooded, Fae-bound warlock character might be very interested in playing a literal fairy. Which is not what's presented here, but it's not uncommon to give this setting and have a player go, oh wow! This was actually the weakest one on Rifts, because in the core book, the only real extra-dimensional power source I can think of is the Shifter. And the Shifter inverts this power. The Shifter is about commanding the extra-dimensional entities. But again, there are in other source books I don't have immediate access to for this stream, there are options like the Mystic Knight or the Conjurer that kind of run a little bit more in this line. And as I mentioned, we have that little fairy image. If we have access to the World Book for England, I'm pretty sure there's fairy RCCs that might be of excitement and interest. So I feel pretty good about Rifts. What setting? Well, this is less important of a question for Rifts than some of these other bits, because Rifts carries with it a default setting. That default setting is Rifts Earth. It's big, it's messy, it's complicated. Because we have an interest in wealth as an important thing, so we want money to matter, that, I think, pushes us towards the civilized, so to speak, parts of Rifts Earth. So that's the new German Republic. That's, I don't remember the name of it. The time-shifted utopia era place in South Japan. Because, like, there's a city in South Japan that shunted itself out of the world at the time of the Rifts apocalypse for, from their point of view, like 3 days, and then shifted back in modern Rifts Earth. So there's still, you know, people from Utopia, pre-magic Earth. And then we have we have the coalition states. Or Tolkien. I don't remember how we spell Tolkien in Rifts. I don't think that's correct, but So these are my potential settings that I could be bringing in. And I come back here. We want access to magic. All these have access to magic. So we're thinking, what does this mean for our player characters? If we're in the coalition states, we're dealing with the fact that the government is very... Basically, the coalition states are fascists, and they hate magic and DBs. We have magic. We have magic and bound to DBs. So if we go coalition states, S is going to, if this drawback becomes known, run into problems with the government. That's a positive. V is going to have problems with the government up front. R, we don't really... R isn't going to, I don't think, affect our setting choice here much. A is going to be happy for anywhere where we have soldier access. Which means, I think we remove Japan. There are some good options on Japan, but I don't know them as well. Since we're thinking badass soldier, and we're thinking Rifts, I am thinking, you know, a person with laser rifles and power armor. Which says goodbye Tolkien. So that means NGR and coalition states. And the NGR is very much in this kind of war with the Gargoyles and the Phoenix Empire. Coalition states is in their sort of Cold War with Tolkien and or the Federation of Magic, depending on where in the timeline we set our little story. But they're far more fascistic. So the question is, do I feel like my players want to be oppressed? Because Sahil's the only one who got back to me and gave me these two from Tales of Arise, I'm going to lean on the end of the set of yes. So, you know what? We're going to go coalition states. And I'm thinking something focused around Chi-Town, possibly proper. This would be a question to answer in session 0 by chatting about that. But I think whatever hook we come up with, if we're sitting around in Chi-Town, our hook is going to be good for either. So what is our hook? So the big hook, which is really here to sell on S and V. Don't get busted for being magic. That's going to be like, that's not our big hook. That's a, how do I want to describe that? That would be S and V, sell it. Don't get busted for being magic. You know, players like being the rebel. Players like fighting against the evil empire. So we can sell this as here, in this situation, in this hook here, your big short-term goal is don't get found out, don't get busted. A's big thing is going to be sort of a thematic, how do I deal with having been the baddie? Because I am baddie, or not having their training. So A is kind of like question mark here. I don't know if A is going to be on board with being a former coalition states soldier. They might just want to be a man of arms and a mercenary. But I'm going to be kind of defaulting to the thought that when they see how much stronger they are, that they'll be down for it. And then R is my big sort of motivation. We need to come up with a question. And this is going to be GM knowledge. Who killed R's parents? And I have a couple choices here. I have gang conflict, motivating a power struggle at the lower level. We have a sort of racialized conflict. Is our magic, psychic, DB. Smaller scale violence. And this would be a secondary thing. So I'm not really defaulting there. And then my kind of third option here is coalition state action. Revolution or cope. So these would be my things, and I would be thinking mostly about R right now, but also everyone else. Which of these is going to be a more useful lead-in for a hook? Because this is the only real lead I have for a hook. Do we want something smaller scale? Do we want something big scale? Because we have a D&D brained person, I lean towards a big scale thing. D&D stories tend to grow into grand overthrow of God type things. And then because we have the rich girl and the soldier, now this brings an internal sort of conflict potentially, because these two have drawn their power from the state that we have to overthrow. The wealthy are tied in. How do they cope with it? I think based on this, I'm going to strip the racialized conflict out unless it comes up in session 0. And I would just ask my players, what level of conflict do you want? Do you want to do something small scale or big scale? And then I would also be asking, do you want to do Chi-Town proper, where you are inside of basically a mega city and you're not really going out and about much? Or are we going to be in, this is like an archipelago type thing. Not an archipelago. Goodness gracious, what is the name of the thing? Whole city, one building. in there or in like the ruined surroundings. So that's going to be what I ask. And then we go into session 0. And I realize now that if I want to push forward with kind of planning this, I have to actually make these characters. Oh no. Well, nothing to it but to do it. So we'll have to decide this, and I think I'll do that with a little dice roller. Wow. We're just gonna, for each of these 4, I'm going to do even or odd for proper Berg's gang coalition. Okay? So for S, first dice is Chi-Town, second dice is our kind of conflict hook. Even odd, so S is gonna like Berg's, not Berg's, proper. Whoa, what was that? Okay, we're good. It was just, I don't know what that was. And then coalition state action. So, fun. Even odd, even odd. Our angry teenager is like, well, I like in town proper, but I also like the gang conflict. R is in the gang conflict, sort of leaning. A, let's say A also wants proper, but likes the coalition state action. So, and I'm not selling this as coalition state action. I'm selling, hi, do you want to be involved in a gang fight, or do you want to be involved in a revolution against the government? So it's very possible that R didn't realize the government could have killed her parents. And then V. Vummer, you're here. If you want to tell me, which sounds cooler? Being in the arcology, that's the word. Being in the arcology or in the suburbs. And then the gang fight or the revolutionary action against a fascist regime. And just in case Vummer left, I'm going to roll. And here I have Berg's gang. Which I actually like that one. So we'd have this little chat, you know, Vummer, assuming Vummer isn't going to tell me something, wanting the Bergs, everyone else wanting the Acropolis proper, and this kind of 50-50 split. And then, with that 50-50 split, my proposal would be, how do we feel about a gang conflict that is serving as a proxy for a coalition action? So something, a gang conflict that gives us a chance to grow into that big revolutionary action. And I think most players would be on board with that. Vummer's a little outvoted on maybe wanting the more open range experience of being out in the burbs, but it sure seems like everyone else is on the proper inside the city train, which means that we have to roll everything. So we're gonna have to make some quick characters. I opened the book in advance. That's a full list of RCCs. I don't need that. There we are. Okay. So let's just throw ourselves a quick stat block. Please tell me I have a sample stat block here. I don't have to try and remember everything I need because it's been a while since I've run. These aren't really super useful stat blocks in the back end here. Okay. You go away. We're going to restrict ourselves to core book. Okay. And I'm just going to quickly throw together a sample stat block here that's going to be quick and easy to work through. Losing chat. No one's really chatting, but here we are. Okay. So we're going to need to actually make these characters. Let's give ourselves we'll keep the characters up here. We'll make our stat blocks. So we need IQ, ME, MA, PS, PB, PE, PB, speed, strike, skills, powers, equipment. Alright, I also need HP, SDC, MDC. That's basically a Rift stat block right there. And we'll have our name, OCC, at the top. And, well, when we're running rifts, our first question is always to go to OCCs. And did I close? Yes, I did. Okay, since we're sticking ourselves to book 1, we have our OCC list here. We have our men-at-arms, scholars, and magic users and racial stuff. So we're thinking back to our player characters and what they're going to want. And here I think A is going to have really the easiest time here. A didn't really give us much, but A's like, I want to be a badass soldier. And I go, look here. You have your badass soldiers. Which flavor do you want? And since we've been talking about the coalition, he's like, ooh, coalition. Ooh, military specialist sounds cool. So swings down to page 55, which is going to be like, oh, will you behave, I think. That's probably going to be closer to page 58. Oh no, it's literally page 55. Cool. Okay, my computer is not happy about something. What is my computer mad about? Dan's bad. Okay. I think we can fix this by limiting how much we're doing internet-wise. Goodbye, music. I think that's going to go a long way towards making my computer less mad at me. So our player's looking through. What are we looking here? We get espionage and reconnaissance. Oh, well, that's what we really want. Technical officers, not really what we want. Ooh, robot power armor elites. But we're inside the city. Grunts are everyday infantry soldiers. But wait, we're inside the city. So maybe someone inside the city. You like being a duchess. Oh, ooh, we'll get to you. So I think A, our, I don't know, I just want to be a cool badass person is probably going to lean, after a little bit of back and forth and chat about what these options really mean, I think is going to settle in on the military specialist. So I don't think I'm gonna go through and stat everyone out at this moment, but that's what I think A is going to think. B, former coalition military specialist. The Duchess of Death. Okay, so we're back to thinking about these other people, and now we have our, so this is the only one who really is going to have an easy time of thinking about OCC. It hasn't given us anything prior to session 0, but in my experience, person who wants to just be a badass soldier is going to just want to be a badass soldier. R is going to give us the biggest issue. S is going to give us some potential issue. V is going to be the one that we might butt heads with. So, again, looking at what Vummer sent on that Warlock, I would, based on this, have gone out of my way to get a hold of Rifts England so that I can offer fairy-related options. Since I don't have that right now, let's take a look at what we've got. Let's think from this Warlock idea. And I would be presenting Mystic, Shifter, and Burster to our Warlock player. And asking, is it the magic, is it the charming magic user that attracts you? Is it the relationship to extra-dimensional beings? Or is it Eldritch Blast? And I'll let Vummer decide. I'll let that move over. It's going to be a bit. And we'll move into thinking about others. You know, our person is probably, at this point, going to have done a little bit of thinking, and I am going to say has settled in on City Rat, because we are a teenager. You know, R is angry teenager with no real interested power set. We've established that the parents have been killed either by the rival gang or the government. So we're going to say City Rat, and we're going to make a little note. Well, there's a question of City Rat or Psychic RCC. Those would be the ones that have really come into thought. Like maybe a Wild Psy Stalker or a Mind Melter or a Mystic, because those would be people that the Coalition would have issues with. But I think City Rat is leaning there. And then we can come back to S. Because S has given us a power that isn't super immediately obvious how we want to do it in any system. And has given us a complication that's tough to think of, and a power that's a little tough to think of. So while our players trying to decide, do I want to be a persecuted psychic or do I want to be a city rat, while our soldier guy is poring over a books full of guns and armor and drooling, while our I want to be a warlock is trying to decide, do I want to be summoning extraplanar entities or blasting people with psychic power? We have to think about these, and I imagine that's going to involve, because we're thinking about wealth, that's going to involve looking at what actually we get. So we go into our OCCs and we start looking. Cyborgs, out. Start with no money. Our coalition RCCs. Grunt starts with 1 month's pay. Well, that's not going to help us. Sam operator. Similar situation. Military specialist guy. Hasn't been thinking about money, but is, you know, actually working for the government at the start of the game. Not a lot of money. Technical officer, same. So we haven't really got rich yet. Crazies only have a pittance, so we're not interested in that. That one's out. The Cyber Knight. This would be a conflict with the coalition. Pittance, but some black market money. Rich materially, but rich in influence and connections is another option, and that's one that makes me go, oh no, for what we've been thinking so much. But that is a possibility. But I think reality-wise, we'd be looking for who has the most money, because that player wants to be rich. Glitter Boy has the most so far. I'm hoping that's not true, because I don't think that vibe fits. Headhunter, pittance. Most people start with a pittance. This is slightly concerning. Juicers aren't going to start with anything. Yeah. Actually, Juicers have more money than Glitter Boys. Scholars and Adventurers. Okay, here we're getting to people who probably will have some money. Our Body Fixer. Yeah, our City Doctor. City Doctor Fixer. 46,000 credits at the start. Now we're in the money. Okay. Our City Rat. This is where I think we're leaning on sort of our Rinwell analog. Losing the magic. Leaning into the teenager. 6,600. That's a bit more money, but definitely not as much as our Body Fixer there. Our Cyberdoc is in the 44,000, so not quite as much as our City Doctor Body Fixer. Oh, it's the same amount as the City Doctor Body Fixer, so, you know, we have kind of two options to think about for our rich person. We have an operator mechanic type, which gives us not much. We'll have little available cash, the same number. So, okay. Our rogue scientist has the 46. Only, okay, rogue scientist has like no money. Rogue Scholar has like no money. Wilderness Scout and Vagabond have like no money. But they don't have the I heard others when they touched me option. And I think we're going to get that out of our psychics. But I do want to just skip through. Okay, our mystics start with some pretty good money. Our Leyline Walkers do. Our mystics, they start with okay, but not quite as much. Shifters start with a little bit, but not a whole lot. Techno Wizards, they start with like nothing money-wise. Dragons. I don't think that our person there is interested in being a dragon, because dragons don't start with any money. We go into our psychic RCCs. Our Burster is kind of where I think our Warlock is probably going to be ending up at about this point. So I will come down here and say, yeah, more than the extra planar thing, it's Eldritch Blast that our Warlock person thought of. They want to just go Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast. So they're going to be a Burster. Like, they're thinking through, as we look through everything, they're going to go, oh, immune to fire, can shoot flame bursts. Hex yeah. Okay. Can shoot fire bolts. Let's do it. Um, Basically no money. And this isn't really like something as a drawback. So it's probably not what we want for this person. Psy Stalkers, trained to control the urge to kill. They have like no money, but they hurt people. So that's not great. Dog Pack's probably not great. I'm thinking we're going to have to come up with something from a GM point of view for this. And then the Mind Melter, again, all positive. So I think at this point we'd be talking with the other player and saying, hey, do we want to just have that be something? We're going to guarantee you a certain level of psionics, and you have this drawback. And ask, do you want to be a fixer, or do you want to be a cyberdoc? And this is interesting because it's moved away from the option that Sahil gave me beforehand when I just was throwing off of, ooh, I want to play Shion, to, maybe this is a more recent thing, this I can't touch people without being hurt. Since I noticed that Sahil's here, which one of those sounds better to you? Or neither, because this is theoretically your character. You could go, no, none of this sounds good. I want to be the Duchess of Death. And then I have to go, ugh, well, let's see what other books I have. Yeah, so we have a recent lay-in. And do you feel more medical doctor or cybertronics engineer? Because those are the two that give you the most starting money and the most social connections. I do know you. So that would be the operator, which is no money. Because they're both of these are kind of doctors. But yeah, a cyberdoc is a little bit more engineer. It's focused on cybernetics and bionics. So so you would be having a bunch of, you'd have some medical skills, but you'd also have computer operations. Your OCC related skills we could lean in for engineering and mechanical. But yeah, I'm not sure how much of this we need right now. I'm not sure I want to make all these characters. But yeah, that seems like, and I think when all of this is said and done, we're gonna end up as a city rat here, Burster there. Because the Burster's a psychic, and I've already been promising our cyberdoc that we'd be giving psionics, I imagine our city rat is begging too. So we're gonna in character creation, you normally roll for random psionics for non-psionic characters, but we're gonna have agreed in this session 0 that we want psionics. So we're gonna give major psionics plus custom drawback, which I need to come up with, and we'll have decided over here minor psionics. So our characters are all, except for A, who is a coalition military specialist, psionic psychics, which means that everyone except for A is a person that A is supposed to be persecuting as a member of the fascist establishment. And at this point, I think, is about where A is going to look up and go, oh shit, because A has been busy looking at guns. I know the sort of person who'd give me A's thing. That they would not have really been paying attention because they'd be drooling over equipment and going, "Oh, I want this and this and this. I can't afford all of it." And would have just been like, "Wait, we've decided everyone's psychic except for me? Oh no." But yeah, let's go ahead and roll one of these characters out. Let's see, I don't need all of this information for V anymore. Really, I don't need all this information for R anymore. We've moved the character motivation out. The only thing really that we have to decide is this custom power, which I think means we're going to lean in on S, because we're going to have to decide how exactly that custom power is. And this is going to be our drawback. Automatic trigger on touch is going to be happen. I think I'm going to have a suppression skill, and it's going to start at like 5%. So if you're willingly because I want to give you, since this is Rifts, one of the things that I want to make sure you have is the ability to say no. There's going to have to be an ISP cost, which is really going to be the drawback. And then it'll be damage. And I don't know what those ISP cost and damage are going to be. I don't know what the suppression skill percent should be. We'll take a look later on about this. But this is our drawback power for our Cyberdock. So we'll go ahead and we'll just do that. We'll make the Cyberdock. So I do believe everything is a 3d6 here, but there's no problem in checking it. Yeah, it's a 3d6, and there's an exception on 16, 17, or 18 with a 6-sided die. Fun house rule that I don't know if I'll do here, I'll decide in a moment, that I've done before, is to have this additional die explode, because that can lead on occasion to absurdly high attributes. But we're not going to be doing that. So this is just 3d6 in order, which actually means that we may run into a problem of not qualifying. But we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. So 14 IQ. 15 mental endurance, 8 mental affinity. I'm gonna flip PE and PP. This is a cool thing about Rift's stats: strength, endurance, dexterity, basically. Mental strength, mental endurance, mental dexterity, basically. So just the die roll here is saying we have a person with a great deal of mental strength, very smart, very able to push forward in like knowing things, very good at resisting fatigue, at keeping focus for long periods of time, but not super dexterous in thought processes. So our default Cyberdock here might be running into issues. Continuing our flipping the PP. Yes. So our strength 8, so below average strength. Average endurance. And the PP, slightly above average PP, which is to say dexterity, acrobatic capability, precision, physical motion. So we have those. And I will now need to do a check here. Actually, no. First, do we have a 16, 17, 18 anywhere? No. Okay. So we don't have any potential exploding dice. I do want to real quick hop on and check our requirements for the city dock, because those do exist. We do have requirements for some of these, and if I were running this, I would kind of flub it properly because we've had this discussion. Cyberdoc is, it looks like 74. Okay. IQ 11 or higher, PP 12 or higher. So we have a problem with the PP. You don't have enough PP. We'll just make that a little bigger. It's fine. It's one off. That's not a big enough difference to matter. We'll just flood it. It's fine. And then we have our physical beauty. 11, slightly above average physical beauty. Speed 12. So, all in all, a pretty solid little doctor character as a basic stat line. Smart, strong willpower, kind of stuck in the way, not super mentally flexible, a little bit weak, perfectly average for like physical endurance, just kind of the bare minimum of focused dexterity you need to be able to handle the fine operations. So we're not a top-end doc. Gives us some room to work with. And going the back and forth, remembering that that's on 75. We can check. We don't have anything 17 or higher, so we don't need to care about any of the attribute bonuses. We can come straight to our HP, which is physical endurance. I think that's just physical endurance, yeah. So hit points 10. Not a lot of hit points. Cyberdoc gets stabbed. Cyberdoc is having a bad day. Don't stab the doctor. The rest of this is going to be going into our situation here. So our SDC. I thought SDC was in the OCC. I guess it's not. It's been a while since I've made a RIFTS character. There we go. It says, okay, it's died in, but we check here. So we are looking at 46 for SDC. Easy peasy. $16. So this as yet unnamed Cyberdoc can take 16 points of damage before suffering actual harm and injury, 10 further points before being on the verge of death, and has, by default, no MDC, so a single point of mega damage capacity will instantly turn her into a cloud of fine homogenates. Strike is not really mentioned clearly anywhere here, but by default it's +0. We'll change it if we need to. It's one of those numbers that's really important in practice that it's just not clear in the rules on how it comes up. So we will now look at our skills, because that's generally important. Although we'll take a look here, the major psionic, which means we'll have ISP. Everyone's going to have ISP, so let's go ahead and add that here. So it'd be 46 plus mental endurance. This is sort of your mana pool. That's a bad roll, 8, but we have 15 there. So 23 ISP. That's basically magic points for psychic powers. Sahil's character is going to not have a great pool. That could be potentially much bigger, but it's not shabby. It tracks down, it ties back to the relatively recent Psionic Awakening, which I like. And we get a choice to be made. 8 powers from one category, or 6 powers from all but super. We'll decide that later. And we'll look at skills, because this is going to be the backbone of all the characters, is skills. So we begin. Like, oh goodness. I've gotten myself into a pickle. There we go. We fixed the pickle. So we have medical doctor, MD, cybernetics, plus 10%. These are free ones that you get. Pathology plus 10%. Biology plus 20%. Chemistry plus 10%. Computer operation plus 5%. Advanced mathematics plus 10%. Because advanced mathematics requires basic mathematics, we're going to bring basic mathematics. It's not mentioned. It should be. Literacy plus 40%. Not every Rifts character knows how to read. My fan has been really mad at me the last couple days. Come on. Oh, I found the problem. Don't make me stop stream because of this. Come on. Oh, I need to restart my computer. Stream will be back in a moment.